Hello and welcome to For Your Reconsideration, the film podcast that mudlarks its way along the sludgy shores of cinema. Will we find a lost heirloom, a bag of missing John Carpenter jams, for example, or just a trolley full of direct-to-DVD flicks that could very well star our favourite ponytailed, chokehold defecating Aikido walrus? I'm Rob, and here are Simon and James. How are you, boys?
We haven't spoke about Seagal for a while.
No. I wasn't talking about Seagal.
Oh, right.
Don't know what you're referring to there, Si. How are you both, boys? You okay?
Very good.
Yeah, right,
Very
mate.
good, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Excellent, excellent. What have you both been watching?
Quite a lot of stuff, to be honest. I saw Civil War last week, but I didn't want to touch on that one too much, as that's had enough discourse, and I think Simon might want to bring that up in a little bit. So,
I wasn't going to do it because I thought you were going to talk about it.
right, okay. I wanted to talk about a fantastic phenomenon that has happened in spring this year. So, look, you wait ages for a Things Ain't Right Down at the Convent movie, and two come along at once. I'm talking, of course, about Immaculate and The First Omen. It's almost like they could have done a Barbenheimer type thing, like Omaculate. That might have worked quite well.
I like it. I like it.
Oh, nice.
Both have very similar setups. American nuns come to Italy to get their religion on, but get way more than they bargained for. Both star young actresses who are most well known for their TV work, so Sydney Sweeney for Euphoria and Nell Tiger-Free for The Underseen Servant on Apple TV+. Me and the three other subscribers have seen all of that show, and it's very good. And both of the films have demented, body horror-infused third acts that absolutely go for it. They are both great, but I give the slight edge to The First Omen. The filmmaking is better. I think they had a bit more money as well. And I found that one genuinely quite scary. Plus, it has Chris Finch in it, who, as we all know, is a bloody good rep.
Yeah.
Finchy. He's got some good films under his belt, hasn't he, over the last few years? Oh, Finchy has.
He has. How much do you think he hates that? You know, like, do you reckon in the back of his mind he knows that, like, saddos like me every time, like, this? We're talking about the actor Ralph Ineson, by the way. Every time he crops up in a mainstream film, it's just like, everyone, in my head, as soon as I see him go, bloody good rep, Chris Finch. But yeah, I thought they were both. I loved them both, though. I think in terms of box office, Immaculate perhaps ate The First Omen's lunch by getting out there first. It's Dante's Peak versus Volcano all over again. It's, yeah, they were both really, really good. Absolutely. I had a ball with both of them. They came out 2 weeks after each other.
Nice.
I'm glad you liked The First Omen, because I've seen, like, a lot of mixed stuff about it. So
I love that series. It's basically just Final Destination for Satanists, essentially. It's like the first one's like directed by Richard Donner, and it's got like Gregory Peck in it, so you think it's dead austere, and it's not. It's super trashy. It's really, really good.
Absolutely love that film.
Yeah, it's so good. Honestly, yeah, they're all on Disney Plus. The one with Sam Neill as well, which isn't great.
I was going to say, wasn't Sam
the
Neill
second one is not very good either. But there's a couple of deaths in that where I was just like, that are up there with the kid getting flattened by the double glazing in Final Destination 2. So yeah, I've really enjoyed digging into that franchise. It's absolutely ludicrous. But yeah, I liked how both films sort of, like, you know, the reveals are coming. You sort of see what's happening in both films, but they both go for it, and they're both properly out there in terms of the reveals and the methods that these dastardly nuns and priests are getting up to. And yeah, I fully bought into the ludicrous nature of both films. They were really good fun.
Nice. I don't think either of those would have hit my radar, but they have now. Thank you.
Yeah, Immaculate is 90 minutes.
Oh,
it's very
sweet
good.
spot.
That's probably the trashier, more gnarly one of the two. But yeah, I really liked them both.
Cool. Any others to speak of?
No, I've been watching Ridley on Netflix, which is probably the best looking TV show I've ever seen. The black and white photography in that from, is it Elswit, who used to work with P.T. Anderson? Yeah, just incredible show to look at, and obviously it's the talented Mr. Ripley, so the story's not bad either. I've really enjoyed that, so yeah, I would recommend that as well.
Cool.
weren't there loads of people whinging about the black and whiteness of it?
There was lots of idiots moaning about the black and white. Yes, so, yeah, you're absolutely correct. A lot of it's in Italian as well.
They'll love that.
Yeah. Absolute morons, honestly. I can't watch it in black and white.
I'm even speaking English.
What is this, in Rome or something?
Nice. What about you, Si? What have you been looking at?
I mean, I also watched Civil War, but like James didn't want to speak about it because I thought James would talk about it.
I saw you'd seen it. You know, you put that tweet out that it's the most 5-star, 4-star film ever made. I was like, I know exactly what he means there. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. No, I did enjoy that as well. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, really good. Really like beautiful to look at.
Yeah,
despite what the subject matter is about, it's really, really beautiful. It is good. It's really, really good. There was just something about it. I haven't quite decided what it was, where I was just like, it's not Alex Garland's best film.
No. I found the characterization a little bit thin, but I don't think that's what he's going for. I also didn't find it that. Maybe that's the whole thing, that it being sort of apolitical is the provocation within it, but I didn't find it especially provocative at all. Americans seem to be having a harder time with it, maybe because it's their country, than anybody else's.
They don't like being criticised, I don't think. Well, I mean, generally speaking, if it's a British guy, like criticising an entire nation, basically, isn't it? So, I think there's going to be an automatic sort of defence mechanism for that. But no, I really liked it because of the whole journalist angle. I thought was that's what it was told through, with these journalists who were going across the country. I thought that was a really good angle for it, because they don't care what side.
No.
They don't care about the sides. They just want to,
get the story.
Sadists to get in the middle of it all and just to try and get the story and get the photo and all that sort of stuff.
What I will say for that film, though, it was made for like $50 million, which is a big deal for a A24, but it looked double the amount of that.
I'm amazed to hear that.
So the scale, particularly in the third act, is unbelievable that they've managed to pull off. I mean, him and his cinematographer are the real deal. Rob Hardy, he shot Mission Impossible Fallout, so he's got the goods. I just really enjoyed it. I just thought it was a really enjoyable.
Very good.
It was like sort of like his version of a Vietnam movie. More than anything, I thought.
Yeah, that's a good because obviously it's a bit more relevant to the times. Someone Alex Garland's age can't really do something about Vietnam because it was so long ago now. But yeah, that's a good point.
I like the suggestion that, and I certainly endorse this way of thinking when I watch films like that. Sometimes it's a clearer, rather than it being someone in the thick of it who's got skin in the game, like an American director. Sometimes the clearest view comes from outside eyes looking in.
Yes.
I'm not saying that having not seen the film, but I certainly don't think it's a bad thing that an outsider's taking a look at another country's political landscape.
No, totally. No.
That's what I thought, but then I went on Twitter and everyone was calling him a centrist bitch, so... So I was wrong.
Oh yes, Twitter, the place you go to find out that you're wrong. Yes. Oh good. Thank you.
Tell me that you affirm my politics, Alex. Dear me. Grow up.
Anything else, Si?
Yeah, I've watched a few things. I'll be quite quick because the film we're about to talk about is absolutely gigantic. I saw Blackberry, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, I love that. I thought it was ace.
Yeah, great addition to the pantheon of tech company biopics that charts the spectacular rise and fall of BlackBerry phones. That's got an amazing unhinged performance from Glenn Howerton from the Crank franchise. I'm going to say that. Not It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is obviously where he's most famous for. But yeah, that's really good. I really enjoyed that. I also rewatched all of the extended Lord of the Rings movies.
Wow.
I saw you doing this.
Yeah. I bought them for my wife maybe last Christmas before, and got like the Middle-earth Blu-ray box set where it's Hobbits, all the Lord of the Rings, all extended on Blu-ray. They're fucking great movies.
They are, aren't
Jesus. They? Even like they're quite old now as well.
Oh yeah. All over 20 years old now, aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, the odd bit of keying is that's the only thing really, but it still looks fucking amazing. How Peter Jackson got that gig, I have no idea. Like, his films before that were like just like comedy horror, gross movies, and then he gets given one of the most popular book franchises ever written. But he fucking delivered.
Absolutely.
He really did.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think I enjoyed him more than I ever have done as well. Like, because I was always off on the Two Towers. I always thought it was really boring.
Oh, it's my favourite one.
But no, I really enjoyed it this time around. I absolutely loved them. Loved it. They're absolutely brilliant.
I think the staging of the end of Two Towers, unbelievable.
Oh, it's amazing. And justice for Samwise Gamgee. I think Sean Astin should have won something for being Samwise. He's so good in those movies, particularly the last one.
Yeah, he really is.
He's very, very good.
What about in the extended editions? How is the end of Return of the King? Because no matter how much I enjoy everything that goes before it, the fawning about on the bed stuff. Oh, Pippin! Oh, Merry! Oh, all of that. I can't stop laughing. Sorry.
The best bit about that is that he says everybody's name apart from Legolas. So they're all walking in and it's all like, Gimli, Pippin, Aragorn. And it's all in like slow motion and it's really funny. And then Legolas walks in and he just nods to it. Just doesn't say anything. And he's the only one. He says everyone else.
Really
so what did Legolas do? Oh, this guy. Oh,
great, you know. See you, mate.
Fucking,
cheers, mate.
Oh, the great films. Yeah. Aragorn.
It's all in slow mo and soft focus as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny, so funny. Just all the shots where you clearly see the body doubles.
Oh
and
yeah, I
they're
love
just
that.
really tiny people. So funny.
Being cobbed about
with massive wigs on and big feet. Oh, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's just amazing film. Amazing stuff.
Nice.
But yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah, very good. What about you, Rob?
So I managed a cinema trip with my young lad. We went to see Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, at his request.
Oh, did you like it?
Really flipping enjoyed it. I thought it had a very saggy middle. And dare I say it, for someone who usually loves this kind of thing, a bit too much fan service at the expense of story and logic at times. But, I flipping love being in this world with these people. And I really enjoyed it. And that's done really well as well, hasn't it? To the point that hopefully we get another one. Yes, please.
Has it made some money?
I thought it had, yeah. Or I might be making that up.
Yeah, I think it's broke 100 at least in America, which is kind of a
that's a good sign. Yeah,
I quite liked it. I preferred it to the other one. I liked how they were back in New York and it was focused on McKenna Grace, who's really great. I liked it. I thought it was good.
Cool. The other thing I've watched is I've been watching The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. So I've been really enjoying these books by Michael Connelly. This adaptation of his character Mickey Haller stars Manuel Garcia Rulfo as the Lincoln Lawyer. And it's really good. Really, really enjoying it. Interestingly photographed in the sense that they use an awful lot of tilt shift stuff on the cityscapes, which makes it look like a great big toy box of LA. You know, yeah, and it's fun. But no, I've really enjoyed it, and the books by Michael Connelly are absolutely absurdly good. So yeah, it's just another lovely string in the Connelly cinematic universe. Does that thing? Oh no, it's not cinematic.
Television, isn't it? Yeah.
Was there a film of that? There was a film of that, wasn't there?
There was a Matthew McConaughey film, which is pretty solid, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well, just to round that out. Connolly's done, there's been loads of stuff. There was blood work with, what's his name, Clint Eastwood, as an FBI profiler as well. So, yeah, it's really good stories, but yeah, definitely worth watching. Something else that is worth watching, I feel, is in our WhatsApp group, boys. And it means that we're going to have to suit up.
Oh no, what's this?
Oh, he's gone! James,
oh, he's gone.
James furious.
Has left. He saw Bigfoot was coming and he has left the stage.
Gone. He's had
gone. He's had enough.
He's back.
Sorry, it just kicked me out. Sorry.
Did it? Oh, sorry.
I thought you left in a big huff because Bigfoot was coming.
Imagine, yeah. No, I love the corner.
That's what we're learning. Other people do as well. So,
Yes.
Good. I'm glad we're going back.
Well, it is time. Get your vials of Bigfoot pheromones and your and your Sasquatch calls queued up on your handheld speakers, because we're going woodside now. It's time for Bigfoot Corner.
Bigfoot Corner.
I have to say, Rob, every time I have to put this in the edit, it's such a good little tune.
Garage band coming to the rescue.
Yeah, brilliant. It's very good.
Yeah.
Someone said it was Dolly Parton, didn't they? Jolene. Someone said it's based on Jolene or something.
Yeah, just a convenient array of loops that lined up nicely. So what I've sent you is footage from a...
Oh, this looks definitive.
This is footage from a trail camera strapped 12 feet above a feeder at the Californian border.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that's... Well, it doesn't really say what border, but this is looking down.
Doesn't matter. It's tiny, that border.
So, yeah, please press play. Now, it's a very short one, accompanied by creepy music, and it's provided to us by the good folks at Bigfoot Testimony on YouTube. Bigfoot Testimony? Sorry, I think we've had some from Bigfoot Testimony before, like he's being called to the witness stand.
I mean, it just looks like a gorilla, really, doesn't it?
It does, but why is a gorilla in the woods at the Californian border?
Good question.
It's a good question.
What I particularly enjoy about this, and I'm going to go through a couple of freeze frames here. There we go. Is the whites of the eyes. Now, gorillas, you don't usually find that with gorillas. Now, some would argue that the fact that the mouth is open in what appears to be a rictus grin could be because it's a mask. But I didn't say that. I didn't suggest that.
I was going to say maybe the whites of the eyes are because they're the eye holes in a mask.
That could also, this not just being a place for furthering and frothing the flames of excitement about the big brown machine. We also debunk, We're also keen to debunk. This is a fair
we're realists,
place.
Rob.
We are.
I like how you're even though you're a staunch Big Brown Machine enthusiast, you will take the will take the criticisms of.
I will. I will, especially if.
I don't know if you've been through the comments section.
No, I haven't.
But
oh no.
Yeah. There's some good stuff. There's some gold in here. Some good stuff.
Oh, good.
Even Bigfoot is getting the fuck out of California. Just another reason not to go into the woods without a sidearm. Lovely stuff. We've been looking for my mother-in-law for ages. Thanks for the help. I've watched this over and over and over. Definitely one of the best vids I've ever seen. That's from Some Drummer. He's convinced by the sound of things,
Nice.
This is by far the best picture of Bigfoot I have ever seen. That sucker is massive. I can't tell which one's a parody and which...
There's no banana for scale. I can't tell how big it is.
You've got someone, Anger Wilson, what a great name for a YouTube account, says he needs to be in a Crest tooth whitening commercial. I do agree. Guy's got outstanding teeth.
He's got star quality.
Someone's paused. This is like me looking at the Walmart security cameras high as shit in the Pringle aisle at 2 a.m. So what's your definitive take? Is this... Have we got him? We got him.
I'm not sure it's definitive. I don't think you can call... less than a second's worth of footage of anything, to be honest.
Call it anything.
Continues, I would say.
I think the music makes it more more believable. The music is swaying me because of the sinister music.
I love the idea that, wow, we've actually got evidence of a new species. We better put some creepy music over the top of it, quick.
I can be swayed by ominous tones.
Yeah, I could.
Why is he evil? He's just looking for some food.
Yeah, with a really angry face. He looks utterly furious.
Just what he looks like, that's just his face.
Yeah. Well, just more evidence that they're so misunderstood, you know? Anyway, it's good to be back. And tune in next time for more zingers from Bigfoot Corner.
Bigfoot Corner.
Oh, gosh, that feels nice.
Oh, it's
So
nice
good
to be back. Nice
It
to be
is,
back.
it is. I wouldn't say that my excitement has been reignited, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Been peaked.
It peaked,
Yeah.
yes. Speaking of peaking, some people's lives peaked in certain times in the runtime of the movie we're about to discuss. Whose pick was it?
Oh, that was mine, Rob. It was mine. And I thought I'd go for something, quick and dirty, just a good 188 minute movie. Would you guys like a log line?
Yes, please. Make it brief, James.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that, to be honest with you. Nothing about this movie's brief. So, jazz, old Hollywood, golden showers, tits, cocks, flee from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, mountains of cocaine, and an animal wrangler showered in a literal shitload of elephant dung. And that's just the opening 15 minutes of Damien Chazelle's epic tale of Hollywood's chaotic transition from silence to sound. The film is, of course, 2022's Babylon. Roll a trailer.
Oh, superb.
I think what we have here in Hollywood is high art. It's
Party time! Sparkle time! If you could go anywhere in the whole world, where would you go?
I always want to be part of something bigger.
Yes.
Let's go! Something that lasts, that means something.
You know, when I first moved to LA,
I got your face touching a window.
you know what the signs on all the doors read? No actors or dogs allowed. I changed that.
Morning.
Good job for you.
I'll do anything.
That's the cocksucker they sent to screw us.
This bitch is stealing the scene right from Mimi. She's icing her nipples so they perk up through her dress.
I ain't icing my nipples. This is natural. Where do you say we come in for my close-up now?
What are your thoughts for the future?
Shouldn't stand in the way of progress.
This is gonna be what it's gonna be. Here's the twist.
Whoa!
The girl seems nice.
She is. She has no idea what's next.
There's a new sensibility now. People care about morals.
I've never done nothing except disappoint people my whole life. But I made it on my terms, not theirs.
We are gonna be more than they ever bargained for.
What I do means something.
It's bigger than you.
And I'm going to bed.
Babylon. Babylon Zoo. James, why did you... Right, we can't go in with that. That is absolutely nonsense.
Babylon 5.
Babylon 5. James, why did you pick Babylon?
Well, the reason that I picked it, Rob, since you ask for the first time, a few weeks ago, I think I mentioned on the last pod we were on that I'd read an article about Damien Chazelle being in movie jail, which was, for me, was absurd, as this movie was the one that put him in there, and it was one of the best films that I saw in 2023, as that's when it was released in the UK. Now, since we last recorded, He's apparently got the green light for a new prison set film. We'll just have to see, though, if it's being shot on location in movie jail. But yes, I thought it was good. It would be good to go and see. Have a look at the movie that he felt put him in movie jail that he's very quickly been sprung from.
Fascinating. So when did you first see it?
I saw it on...
was it in the cinema on release?
Oh, of course, yeah. So I knew it wasn't going to be around very long. My local cinema was playing it at like 6 p.m. once a day for a week, because it had by the time it came out in the UK in January of 2023, it had already bombed in the States, so it was sort of dead on arrival. So they were just like, right, we've got to show it for at least a week. Let's get it in. So I took myself off to the cinema with a packed lunch and watched it with about 3 other people, which, yeah, frankly, was terrible circumstances for the movie, but I had a bloody lovely time, I must be honest.
Brilliant. So what about your relationship then, Si, with Babylon? Did you also see it at the time?
I did, yeah. So I'm a big fan of Damien Chazelle ever since watching Whiplash, which blew me away at the cinema. I think I went to see that about 3 times. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And then for me, it was like 3 for 3 with Whiplash, La La Land, and First Man, which again is a bit of an unappreciated film, I think, First Man. So yeah, I went to the cinema opening weekend with my wife, and honestly, I had one of the best cinema-going experiences I've ever had, to be honest. There was literally no one else in the cinema. It was just us two, right in the middle of the screen, in a completely empty cinema, with about 3 bottles of wine, trying to keep up with the people on the film with all their drinking. No, there was no Class A drugs, though. It was just the wine. But yeah, honestly, it was an excellent experience. We had a great time. One of the best experiences I've had at the cinema. And it's definitely one of those, like, an example of why some films need to be seen at the cinema to get the most out of them, I think. And maybe, well, certainly from, this was opening weekend. I think it was maybe a Sunday, like midday on a Sunday or something like that. And yeah, no one in there, just absolutely no, it was completely dead. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. And when I first saw it.
Nice. So for myself, to round out where the 3 of us, or how far back the 3 of us go with this one, I was aware of it. I've not seen Whiplash. I've not seen La La Land. And I've not seen First Man. So my position on Damien Chazelle is neither here nor there, really. I don't have any basis to go on. And that's all to, not great. Ooh, he hosts a film podcast. And he's not got a clue. Yes, it's true. I don't. So Babylon being a 3-hour epic from the outside looking in, going off the marketing and things like that, was not ever going to be my bag. Ever. So it was not on my radar to watch at all. I would never have pressed play on this if James or Si yourself, if you guys hadn't picked it, there's no way this would have happened. So I have absolutely no frame of reference, no basis for comment, or just that I was never going to watch this, which is so shallow of me to say, and I recognise that it is, but like, isn't life busy? And wow, 3 hours is a long time. so yeah, and I didn't see it, but it must qualify. So is it budget and box office, James?
Yeah, so probably based on mine and Simon's cinema going experiences, you probably got an idea of where this is going. So Babylon grossed $15.4 million in the United States and Canada, and $48 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $63.4 million.
Oh my God.
According to Deadline Hollywood, with a combined production and promotion budget of around $160 million, Babylon would need to gross $250 million worldwide in order to break even. Deadline Hollywood believe that the studio lost $87.4 million when factoring together all expenses and revenue.
Whoa.
So, yeah, it didn't do great at the box office, to be fair. It was not a soft hit like Nowhere to Run.
Would you say, therefore, in that case, that is why Damien Chazelle thinks he's in movie jail.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's definitely down to the money. They wouldn't care if it had made 300 million worldwide and been panned by the critics, and nobody would care really. They'd be like, right, on to the next one. That one didn't work, but we all washed our faces. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this also as well was Paramount's big prestige play for that year's Oscars as well. If you just look at the talent involved, it did actually get nominated for 3 Oscars.
Score, surely.
Score, production design, I think, and maybe costumes as well. But didn't win any, and didn't get any of the big ticket awards either. And Simon will probably dip into that a little bit more when the critical backlash comes for this film as well.
Cool. Well, in which case, should we go over to that one then? Because I don't know. That's why I asked the question about Chazelle, because I don't know any review of this film. I've got no idea how this film was received whatsoever. So we know it qualifies on the budget and box office and on the numbers, but what about critical, Si?
Yes, it would also qualify on that metric. Kind of only just really, like technically, but yes, it did not go down well with the vast majority of critics, to be honest. It currently stands at 57% on Rotten Tomatoes on the critic side, and 52% for audience. So even worse. It's not one of those where there's a disparity between critics and audience. It's kind of widely panned by everyone. It's ever so slightly better on Metacritic, where it's at 61 on the critical scale with an audience of 7. So better on the Metacritic side. Yeah, in terms of the write-ups, it is like a real mixed bag. You know, as you can tell by those aggregate scores, it is more leaning on the negative. There's a lot of bad reviews for this one.
Really?
Particularly over here, actually. Mark Commode gave it 2 stars, saying it was neither subtle nor very good. And Charlotte O'Sullivan of the Evening Standard called it a disaster of biblical proportions on the way to giving it 1 star.
Wow.
Similar story over in the States. There was a large number of critics sort of repulsed by the excess of it. Chazelle's supposed self-indulgence, which was a big criticism as well, and its hefty runtime of over 3 hours for a film like this. It wasn't all negative, mind you. Empire's Beth Webb was a bit more down the middle. She gave it 3 stars, but I think a review is a bit more positive, to be honest. She called it a daring, formally audacious, yet messy ode to cinema from one of the most enterprising filmmakers working today. And I do know Beth Webb, so I'm going to ask her about this one next time I see her. Robbie Collin of The Telegraph and Clarice Lowry of The Independent both had the cojones to put their heads above the parapet with this one. Both give it 5 stars.
Woo!
And yeah, they both really, really loved it. All the things I said everyone hated about it, the people who liked it for those reasons. So it's an interesting thing how everyone's making similar observations, but people are liking that about it and people are not liking that about it. But we only really care about one man. Really.
Is he?
We welcomed him back last week after a long hiatus. The sheriff is back.
Yes!
You may have seen it, but can you guess what Mick thought of the film?
I don't know. Oh, I'm nervous to say.
I've got no idea.
I mean, he loved Click, but is he going to love Damien Chazelle's Babylon?
Mick loved it.
Of course he did. Good guy. What a guy.
What a guy.
He's on the right side of history with this one.
Full 5 stars from the sheriff. He
Nice.
said, don't mistake Chazelle's lack of sentimentality for callousness. Babylon is coarse, hard and wild, but its emotion is undeniable. Babylon is what movie love really looks like. So he really liked it.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, there's mad swings. There's 1-star reviews, there's 5-star reviews. Because it's a fairly recent movie, there's loads of bloggers have reviewed it, Rotten Tomato qualifying bloggers and things like that. So there's hundreds of reviews on there. And as I say, it's kind of extreme both ways, actually. But it is more negative than positive, hence the sort of scoring. Letterboxd is pretty good, actually. It's a 3.8 average on there, which is pretty high. Majority of the ratings are 4 stars. You see a little bar thing, and it's 4s are the most prominent there. There's actually someone I follow on there called Alice, and I quite enjoyed logging into Letterboxd in 2023 because she saw it 7 times.
Whoa!
5 of which were at the cinema.
Outstanding. She must have gone every day that week.
Yeah, absolute dedication. And just out for like 2 weeks. And yeah, unsurprisingly, she gave it 5 stars on all 7 occasions. But yeah, it's a polarising one, I think, for sure.
Well, we do love a polarising one, and we love, ones that do divide opinion. This one sounds like it might be right up there as one of our most divisive, films that we've had.
I think so,
which makes it all the more ripe for discussion, I would have thought. Very, very interesting. And I love to hear that the sheriff threw in his thoughts. Awesome.
5 stars. Go on, Mick.
5 stars, baby. While the runtime of the movie is so extensive, should we just get straight into it?
Oh, yeah, yes. Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay. So the movie opens with one of the most memorable sequences I think I can remember ever, I think possibly. But also the look of the film is right there. I mean, it's, dare I say, is it kind of overexposed in a way? Someone more qualified needs to help me here.
Yes, that was one of the things I really loved about it, is how, particularly when you're outside in the desert and in the daylight, it's really overexposed, and it's just got a bit of like an ethereal look to it, but then also a look that makes it really dirty. So it's a proper striking look, and it just looks really hot.
Oh yeah,
because obviously you're in California and the desert, and it's just absolutely you can feel how boiling it is just by watching the way it's shot. But it's a great looking movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's shot by Linus Sandgren. I think that's how you say it. He's Chazelle's usual DP since La La Land. He also shot masterpieces like Saltburn, which, for all of Saltburn's shortcomings, it's a very good-looking movie.
It's the best thing about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, the way it's shot.
And the greatest Bond movie of all time, No Time to Die. The man who shot Bond being murdered on screen by Daniel Craig.
We can move away from that. This feels like looking at this feels like the meat sweats, or like having like a really like heavy going, like waking hangover. It's just so, I feel it's too much, like everything about it, the editing, that kind of stuff. It's a fever dream, this movie, isn't it, essentially?
Yes. Particularly in the first hour as well. It does slow down in the second and third hours. It becomes less frenetic, but capturing the chaos of during the prologue, which is that huge party sequence and them trying to get this elephant up the hill, and then also the madness of the on-set shooting and how silent films were made is just unbelievably kinetic and frazzled filmmaking, and in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
And I think I sent you guys a message yesterday when I was watching it. It was like, is this the best opening hour of any film ever? Because it's just a full-on assault.
It is. So I'll be dead honest. Like, I thought the first half an hour, the party, was one of the most obnoxious openings to a film I've ever encountered in my life. I felt like I was being held down and hit with a frying pan. It was so in your face and over every kind of top I've ever imagined. And then so I was like, I don't know how I feel about any of this, only that my head hurts. And then we got into the stuff with on the silent movie sets, and the rhythm started to kick. And I started to feel the vibe a little bit of the movie itself, of what Chazelle's done. And I found myself really falling in love with it during that period, that sequence there.
It's mad that this is your first one of his films, because this is not his style, generally speaking.
Right.
He's usually a lot more reserved than this and a lot more deliberate in his... like La La Land as well. It's like gorgeously shot and stuff, but it's quite a safe film in a lot of ways. It's a sort of classic kind of updated musical, and First Man is about this guy who's like barely functioning as a human, just burying all of his grief into going to the moon, essentially. It's like the antithesis of an American heroic biopic, and then Whiplash is just J.K. Simmons swearing at Miles Teller for an hour and a half. But yeah, this was like a full-on sort of like, I'm going to do a Scorsese, essentially. I'm going to do a coked-up Scorsese movie for the first hour of this film. I'm going to do my Wolf of Wall Street, but it's in 1920s Hollywood. And yeah, I get why people would take against it, because he just goes, I'm going to hit you with everything in this first hour. Everything that I've got, I'm hitting you with a lot of it. But what I don't understand about this is, like, this is obviously a very expensive movie. Someone at Paramount must have read the script. And you're getting into, right, so we've got elephant shitting all over everybody. That's quite a on-the-nose metaphor for being on the bottom rung of the ladder in Hollywood. Yeah. Okay, right, we can do that. Right, so now we're going at the party, and we've got a starlet doing a golden shower on a fat little piggy man. Right. Oh, there's cocaine. Oh, there's people just having sex, unabandoned all around the place. Oh, here's this absolute nightmare woman turning up. Oh, she's the star of the movie. She's going to be an absolute train wreck for this entire film. I just can't believe everyone just went, yep, yeah, that all seems pretty good to us. How much would you like to make this motion picture, Damien?
I mean, it looks like, as crazy as it just looks mega expensive.
It does.
Everything about it looks expensive, yeah.
In this opening hour, you've got, I mean, there's more than two, but the sort of two big standout sort of big oneers, where you've got the entrance into the party where it goes through, and there's hundreds of people in there, and all the stuff that's happening in that room, to have all that going on. I mean, to just set that room up in itself would cost millions. And then you've got the big one long take of the studio sets in the desert.
Yeah.
It's just so expensive, all this what's going on. And the effort that goes into planning all that out and executing all that. Like, I wonder how many times they had to do those takes to sort of nail it. That's one of the things I love about Chazelle, is like, he does these sort of film school techniques, like his big long one shots and his whip pans, and his edits are really sort of tight and, you know, really, really rhythmic, because he's obviously a very musical director, you know, the Whiplash being heavily based around music, and then obviously La La Land being a musical heavily based around music. And this kind of is as well, because there's that constant sound of a band in the background of pretty much all of it, really. So he's a very musical director, and he's a very rhythmic director. And all that just looks like, this is why I like this film and like his films, is you can see all that on screen, and it's like the money's just like spilling out of the cinema screen as you're watching it, because it just looks so lavish and expensive.
Yeah.
And he, in my opinion, he's succeeding in what he's trying to do, and he's pulling it off. All this madness, he's pulling it off really well, and he just executes it all brilliantly, I think. And this first hour just kind of shows that and illustrates what a good director he is, even though he's obviously quite twisted deep down inside.
And I think as well, you know, you can say this is unbelievable feat of filmmaking, but you know, he's showing off as well, like he is, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that either. It's like, I am going to just orchestrate chaos for the first hour of this film, and I'm going to drag you along with me, whether you like it or not. And as it turned out, a lot of people didn't like it because they felt like they were being bashed over the head with it.
With a big inflatable dick.
I think, yeah, the levels of excess in that first half an hour are really something to behold. It's like a train that you're trying to keep on the tracks, but at no point do you feel it falling off.
No, exactly.
I thought honestly, I got, as much as so much of it was distasteful and in your face and so desperately lurid, it was a masterpiece. And that's how I feel like after that first hour. It's like watching a consummate filmmaker who's not just got something to say, but has a unique and potent way of saying it. At the absolute peak of his powers. And I just thought it was the first hour is one of the most mesmerising hours of cinema I've ever seen.
Yeah. And it is exhausting. And when I first saw this film in the cinema, I was like, I just sort of check your watch after they finish shooting after Nellie and Jack finish their respective shooting days, like the day after this party, and I'm just like, I'm not sure I've got the stamina to sit here for this entire film, because he's just not stopping. He's not slowing down at all. He's just gone from 0 to 60 and he's just gone 100 miles an hour for the entire opening act of his film. But there is stuff that's laid in there, during in the midst of all the debauchery and shenanigans going on in that big mansion. We do meet the main cast of the film and the characters that we're going to follow across this odyssey through Hollywood. So Jack Conrad, he comes into the party. He's played by Brad Pitt. I'm pretty sure they probably went to DiCaprio first and DiCaprio passed, and then they went to Brad Pitt next, because I believe they both read this script when they were when they were shooting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So he went out to both of them for it. Then Margot Robbie arrives on the scene, and that's Nellie Leroy, who's going to be the new starlet of the silent era. Apparently, he wanted Emma Stone initially, but she couldn't make it work with scheduling stuff, and it would have been different. Nellie would have been a slightly different character in that sense, not quite as wild as Margot Robbie takes it. How did you find that? I've seen a lot of criticism of her performance. How did you guys find that?
Of Margot Robbie?
It's not necessarily the performance, it's the character, isn't it? How awful the character is.
Yeah.
So you can't really criticize a performance when that's what the character is. It's just this like unashamed woman who will do absolutely anything to be famous and just has no filter and no limit to what she'll do, and she's just absolutely off her head.
Yeah.
I guess there's a sort of criticism of Margot Robbie. This is a sort of safe zone for her and how she is in movies, but she's really great at it. So I don't know how you can, it just because the character's horrible doesn't mean it's a bad performance. Interesting, I didn't really notice that she was sort of criticised.
Yeah, a lot of reviews I read at the time were like, oh, it's so big, it's an awful performance, she's not been directed at all. Whereas I feel the opposite of that it's like incredibly brave performance. Like, she really goes big, and again, it comes down to personal taste, doesn't it? There's a scene later on where there's quite a lot of vomit involved that seems to cop a lot of there are, for this one though, they were hoping it would get a Best Picture nomination. There are a lot of bodily fluids in this movie.
Oh yeah. Which is, it's extremely bold to have a graphic close-up of an elephant's butthole in the first 5 minutes of a movie, which then shits all over. So it's quite excessive. It's quite a bold move to do that, because you're gonna lose a lot of people by doing that. I think. I think that's what happened, and it doesn't get any better. There's I think 5 minutes after that, I mentioned there's a big fake jizzing cock on the stage, and it's just there's a lot of bodily fluids there. Really is.
I absolutely do not understand people criticising Margot Robbie in this at all, and saying that the performance is over the top. I mean, it's not exactly this movie is subtle, is it?
Yeah.
It's in keeping with the film.
Yeah.
This performance, and obviously, I thought she layered Nellie with tragedy, with pathos, with humour, but made her likeable.
Exactly.
I thought it was a really good turn. I'm amazed that people don't think this is good,
because it's such a skill to play something. You get those actors who, no matter who they're playing, are really likeable, and she manages that in this. I think, because no matter what she does, she turns up drunk driving, ploughing into a fountain, and she's just off her head already.
It was the 1920s. Sorry.
But at all the points in the film where she's fucking up and she's screwing over Manny and she's not doing herself any favours, you're still rooting for her. You're still hoping that there's going to be some sort of redemption for her and that it's going to work out for her. And she's, you are rooting for her throughout the whole film, even though she's this loose cannon.
Yeah, she's self-destructive, isn't she? Yeah.
That's performance, isn't it? Surely.
Of course it
Surely
is,
that's performance. Yeah.
I think there's two scenes in the film where I think she's completely brilliant, but shows so many different facets to her ability. And I think that's the scene on the silent movie when she's called in and she bonds immediately with the director. And she's, the director's getting ideas on the spot, and she's stealing the movie, essentially. Like, that I thought was brilliant, and I thought she was fabulous there. But also then the scene where it was the first talkie scene that she did, where, again, I have to say, the editing in that first talkie scene that she shot was just brilliant. It was just an electric scene to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a good performance. And it does go big, but she goes for it and she commits to the material fully. And what we see within the party is she sort of she gets into the party through Manny's help. So Manny is sort of like on the lowest rung of the Hollywood ladder, helping out around this the head of this fictional studio, Kinescope. Is it Kinescope?
Kinescope, yeah.
And he sort of smuggles her into the party, and they do a load of cocaine together and start talking about their dreams, essentially. And it's at this party that Nellie is discovered because something horrible happens to the girl delivering the golden shower earlier, who was supposed to be playing the wild child in the film the next day. And, Margot Robbie does a lot of dancing and is completely transfixing in that. And as a heterosexual man, I have no opinion on that whatsoever.
I love that dance scene. It's just so...
Yeah.
And you mentioned it, the editing on the on that scene with the talkie picture, Rob, but the editing in this dance number is brilliant because it's got the band as well.
Yeah.
And it just keeps doing those cuts to like the trumpets, and it's just the camera's going all over the place. And I love that thing Chazelle does with, there was I think it was La La Land, there was a sort of behind the scenes shot. And there's that shot in La La Land where the camera keeps going from Gosling on the piano to Emma Stone dancing on the stage. And in this sort of behind the scenes video, Chazelle is just tapping the DP on the shoulder to whip around, and he's just like, every time he taps him, he spins the camera around to the other performer. And you've got that similar thing in this as well, where the camera's just whipping all over the place.
Yeah.
The conversations feel like tennis matches because it's just constantly left and right, and camera's going all over the place. And it does it in several scenes, but in this dance scene, it's just, you said it, Rob, peak of his powers. It's just such great filmmaking, and
it really is
quite frustrating that seems to have been overlooked because of the excess of it all and the debauchery of it all. People haven't just looked at it objectively as a film and gone, it's made really well though, isn't it? No one has said that.
Stuff is really hard to do,
which is a bit of a frustration for me, because it's like, obviously I have your faults with the grossness of it and excess of it all, but you still should be able to turn around and go, that's shot and cut really fucking well, though, isn't it? Despite all that sort of stuff. I feel nowadays that it kind of gets overlooked quite a lot. Like, good, solid, technical filmmaking gets kind of overlooked a lot. And I think it's a real shame, really.
I totally agree, Si. I think that the modern day system of reviewing movies and the way that it's got this to this point of 5 stars or whatever doesn't actually, it doesn't give you any wiggle room. The fact that, a movie can be a 1-star movie but still be, nothing wrong with it technically. Surely the lowest scores for a movie should, suggest that technically there's something amiss with it, because usually in whether a film is reviewed as good, bad, or whatever, only a handful of things are really being judged. Story and performances are being judged, but so much of the technical stuff is not being judged in those scores. Whereas surely this is because of just the sheer standard of filmmaking on offer here. This is 4 stars from a start point for me. Yeah. And that's if the rest of the bag is totally bungled.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we don't like to diss films on this podcast, but I saw an action film recently that has been getting rave reviews. And for me, it was fundamentally flawed because it was really badly directed in terms of it was shot poorly, it was cut even worse, and you couldn't get a handle on any of the geography within the scenes and it was not at this level of this, but I always know exactly where I am within a scene in Babylon, and that's just a fundamental of filmmaking. And he's juggling so many different plates, spinning so many different plates, at this stage, and none more so than when he goes onto the film set. He's like, "Oh, well, you enjoyed that party, right? I'm going to ramp it up again here."
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much my bag. This is like how the chaos of silence, essentially, in terms of how silent movies were made, and it was just because they didn't have to worry about what was going on off camera or or noise invading their set. It was just an absolute circus with hundreds of extras and 50 films being shot all at once, and just stunning. Never seen anything like it in terms of the command of that sort of scale with that many moving parts.
Do you think it's fair to say that of what people didn't like about the film, Chazelle's actually been too successful in pulling this off? Like, he wanted to show that the time was an era of, this is like a fairy tale of excess. It's like an ode to just how far the human condition can push in its quest for fame and what it can put itself through.
Yeah.
Because of, the bright lights. Yeah. And in doing that and in executing this just so well, he's managed to damn himself and condemn himself and his movie. He did too well here. He did too good a job.
I think when I was watching it, one of my first things watching it was it feels like Baz Luhrmann, but with no filter. It's like what Moulin Rouge should have been.
Yeah.
That era of time in Paris, which is drugs and booze and sex and all that. But then you watch Moulin Rouge and it's really sort of timid.
Yeah, sanitised, yeah.
Yeah, really sanitised. Whereas this feels like he's gone, no, I'm going to just show how depraved humans can be when they're just let off the leash. And that, again, I think that's a good thing. And I said at the start with the elephant thing, I do think if people don't like that and sort of turn off on that, you're never going to get them back.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of starting, as bold as it was, is where he lost a lot of people and he just couldn't get them back. And then you're not going to get them back by then just having just someone then pissing on someone and then someone shitting on someone or whatever. I commend the bravery of it, but I do think that's where this failed, is how debaucherous it was. Because people are very prudish, particularly in the States. I think it's a very prudish nation, so it's very very brave for him to go to those depths.
Imagine you're going in, the new picture from the director of La La Land. Oh, this will be lovely. It's about classic Hollywood.
That was a lovely film, wasn't it?
Yeah. Two dreamers in Hollywood. So, and this is about two dreamers in Hollywood. It's just a bit... what I call it is, and I must confess that I hadn't seen Singing in the Rain before I saw this film, and I've since watched it in preparation for this. But this is basically Singing in the Rain with the gloves off.
I haven't seen Singing in the Rain. I need to watch it. I keep people saying it's like really funny.
It basically hits. You'll like it because it hits all the same sort of beats as this, but obviously can't get into the cocaine and golden showers of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should move on, really. So The Wild Child is the film that Margot Robbie's character gets drafted into, is a hit. Manny helped out massively on the film that Brad Pitt's character Jack was making, and now he's sort of like Brad Pitt's right-hand man. And then we get the first mention of a sound picture, The Jazz Singer, over at Warner's. And everybody's very sceptical of it. But what's been nicely introduced in that first hour is that Brad Pitt's character, Jack Conrad, who's like the big star of the silent era, he's like, we need to keep reinventing the art form and push it forward and all this stuff. And not realising that the oncoming train of progress is what's actually going to completely take him out and decimate his career, and not just his career but his life as well. On Jack as well, he's quite an interesting character because I think they went a bit light on his archetype because he's, obviously a big shot, a terrible husband, but not a bad guy by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't know if that's a lack of bravery. I think probably too kind to that sort of archetype. I don't know what you think.
I think you might. I thought it was definitely the safer of the two roles in terms of Jack and Nellie Leroy.
Yeah,
and I thought it was an easier pitch for Pitt to do, if you know what I mean. I hope that's come out right. I thought Pitt was absolutely fine. I actually just think that the part had less for him to do than Margot Robbie's did.
Yeah, absolutely. And also as well, I think what they didn't want to do is make him too unlikable. So they wanted to put about that he was a bit of a cad, but, a cad with a heart of gold, like he looks after his suicidal friend all the time. And I just don't know if, like you say, it was just a little bit safe, that character. And it's obviously set up because of how things ultimately turn out for that character later on in the third hour of the film. That they didn't, they obviously want to try and pull on heartstrings and make you feel for this man who's been destroyed by the progress that he was sort of advocating for earlier in the film.
I just completely agree.
You don't think it's like a PR Brad Pitt thing, sort of dialed it down because it's Brad Pitt, or do you think that's the way the character was written?
No, I think it's possibly a narrative conceit, to be honest, because they know which way that character's going to go later on. He just seemed a little bit too, like, the behaviour, not that you're advocating for any of this type of behaviour, there's enough reprehensible stuff going on in the movie, but it seemed like they didn't want any of the main male fulcrum of the movie to be sort of, like, he goes to these parties that are full of all this debauchery going on, but he doesn't actually participate in any of it. I just didn't buy it as a conceit for a huge star in that era of Hollywood.
He does get off with that waitress, though, in the first party. He's on the balcony with her, isn't he?
He does more than just smoochy smooch.
Yeah, well, because it cuts to it. You don't quite make out it's him, but there's a shot.
Is that him? I thought they were randomly.
Yeah. No, it's him. So he's with the waitress, like, yeah.
All right, fair enough. I take that back then. That's fine.
But it is very hidden.
Yeah.
I don't think I clocked that first time round. I was just watching it yesterday.
There were so many people having sex at that party that I couldn't tell who was who.
I know, yeah, they just all blended.
No, I take that back then slightly.
I do see what you mean, because he is the film's good guy. Well, I mean, Manny's the film's good guy, really. Like,
he's like corrupted, isn't he? By
the
institutional racism and homophobia and things like that. And I think what I would say about this film is that, I absolutely love it. I don't think it's perfect. I think it is flawed in certain areas. I think the main thrust of the three central characters, so Nellie, Manny, and Jack, is handled really well, and that's clearly where Chazelle is at his strongest when he's dealing with events surrounding them. I think where it comes a little bit unstuck slightly is when he's dealing with the racial politics around Sidney Palmer, and also the sort of homophobic overtures that are in there with regards to Lady Faye and her relationship with Nellie that sort of develops in the second hour of the film, because she's like quite a big focal point in the first 90 minutes of the movie, and then it's like, oh, we don't need titles anymore, you're gone, essentially. But they sort of skid over the fact that they were possibly having a relationship as well. And I don't think he's as sure-footed with those, and those are sort of topics that you would really want to dig into and give them the exploration and the weight that they deserve, but they kind of feel like an afterthought. It's like, oh, Hollywood was also quite racist and homophobic back then. Right, now back to the three characters that I want to focus on.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good point, because it's almost like there's too many characters, isn't there? Because it's almost like someone like Sidney deserves his own movie.
Exactly, yeah.
Because his story is so interesting, and he's probably the most pure character out of all of them, isn't he, really?
He's the only one with any principles, isn't he? He's the only one who doesn't sell himself out for... Well, him and Lady Faye, actually, because she's like, I'm going to Europe, and he walks off the lot, basically, after he's made to put the dark makeup on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're the only characters who've got any other principles. Everybody else is willing to just sell their soul for stardom or power within the Hollywood machine, or to maintain their hold within that.
Yep.
Yeah. I do think they're both good characters, and I do like when they're both on screen. It's a weird one in the case of Sidney, because he's not really in it for that first hour, and then he's in it quite a lot, and then he disappears again.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, like this guy's like the third lead again, and then he's like, oh right, well, I don't think it was this, and I think he's probably just struggling because he's shot so much stuff. The script's probably even longer than the film is, I would think. I'd hate to think what the assembly cut of this movie clocked in at. It was probably 5 hours. And it just feels like a lot of their subplots and storylines maybe got jettisoned in terms of streamlining, and it doesn't really give those issues the sort of exploration that they maybe deserve.
Yeah, very true.
So I must say that I know that we've talked quite extensively about the first hour, but I actually think the second hour carried on just as strong. I still thought that I was watching a masterpiece unfold before my eyes.
Absolutely.
What we get then in the second hour of this is that sound is coming, and this is the train of progress, and you're either going to get on it or you're going to get left behind, essentially. And what we see is going from the carefree sort of art first, art through chaos of making silent films, to the sort of like almost oppressive, claustrophobic professionalism of recording pictures for sound. And then you've got that, it's almost like an extended sort of skit, isn't it, where they're just trying to get this one scene with Nelly and that poor cameraman in the sweatbox. And
it's brilliant. Everyone is performing just unbelievably there, aren't they?
Yeah, it's such a well executed scene from an acting point of view, and again the way it's cut and shot. And when you're, I've never been on a film set, but when I've been on like sets with crews and what have you, it's so funny how precious sound guys are, and they will stop everything because a plane goes over or something like that. So when I was watching this scene, I was just absolutely loved how that sound guy was the biggest dickhead, and everyone absolutely hated it because he's just stopping everything, just for the sake of like there's a little hum in the background, or it's not picking it up so much and all stuff like that. It's just so funny because sound guys are the most precious people on a shooting set in my experience. Absolutely. If they're not happy, you're not getting anything done. So that scene for me was very, very funny.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's really good and really made me laugh. And you could just see that like so many of these actors are not going to be able to make this transition from what they were doing previously, which was a lot broader. And then obviously then the classism comes into it as well. Like people can't stand Nellie's voice. So they don't want to hear her talk, and if talkies are going to be the way forward, then that's going to be her, as soon as she's reached the top, essentially, she's going to be on the downward slope straight away.
Yeah, because there's that sort of intimation of films were there for working class people to make.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
New York is kind of the posh side of the country, isn't it? Where it's like theatre and it's very highbrow, and it's for the upper crust to both be in those things and then to also watch those things because they're dead expensive to go to the theatre and all that sort of stuff. Whereas Hollywood was accessible to everyone and anyone could watch it because it was like so cheap to go to the cinema, and then anyone could be in these films because you didn't necessarily need to be an actor. And then that's all changed. This is what's changing, isn't it? All the theatre actors are realising there's a lot of money in Hollywood, and they're sort of coming and stepping all over all the actors and stuff, and sort of taking all the good jobs because they have that experience of performing with their voice and things like that. So I really like that class dynamic of it in this second hour.
Yes, I do as well, yeah. I think he nails that completely, yeah.
Really well realised, and in particular with Nelly, is she from Jersey or something, and that's why they all hate her voice. And and then even with Jack, because he has a big... Who is it who plays it's like his third wife or something? Is it
Catherine Waterston?
Yeah. And she's this real actor and she's giving him advice and all this sort of stuff, and he blows his lid because he's like, he can't take it.
He gets the news that his producing partner, George, who sort of discovered him as committed suicide. So there's been sort of a running subplot in the background that every time George gets dumped by a woman, he gets suicidal, and Jack's always been able to talk him off the ledge, so to speak, but the one time he wasn't there, he actually followed through with it. And then Brad Pitt's character has this huge monologue and blow up with his wife, in which he's advocating what you've just said, Si. It's not a low art form. It's for the masses. It's for the people who can't afford to go to the theatre. He goes, if 100,000 people see your play, that's a flop out here, and that's the difference. And amazingly, she doesn't leave him at that. He's able to because he goes absolutely mental at him. This is also after he's been shot by his previous wife earlier in the film. Which, there's so much going on. We just have to skid over.
We do, because we're getting to a point now where it emerges that Nellie Leroy's got some pretty significant debts going on, and goodness gracious, Manny's got to go and meet the people that she owes money to, and hand off some money. And we get a surprise appearance from.
So good.
It's Tobey Maguire. Goodness me, my jaw was all over the place during this period of the movie.
Same.
Yeah, it's superb. I mean, what I would say for Manny has become like a studio executive. He's like almost the head of the sound division at this make-believe film studio, and his whole thing has been, because he's in love with Nellie, or he's in love with the idea of Nellie. I think that's quite well explored within the film, that he's in love with that movie star stardom, but in real life she isn't actually that person. And his whole thing is like about getting her career back on, getting her back to the top, essentially. And I would say, as a studio executive, he makes some pretty bad decisions along the way, and none more so than using the prop guy and set drug dealer to help him out with paying off Tobey Maguire and the wrong uns.
When I saw that, because I didn't know Tobey Maguire was in this when I first went to see it, and
no, nor did
he's
I.
a producer on it apparently.
Yeah,
and when they go into this mansion, and it's the guy from Boy Meets World who comes to meet him, the big sort of burly dude, and he's in that Earl program as well, the Jason Lee one.
Yeah,
and
Ethan Suplee. Yes, that's the actor.
Yes, yeah, him. And you're a bit cautious about these wrong-uns because he's really gross. And then he walks up to see him, and it's just the back of this person's head who's like this big scary mobster. And then it's Tobey Maguire. The makeup is so disgusting. He's just so gross to look at, isn't he? Because he's just clearly, he's dead gaunt, and he's dead yellow, and he's got bags under his eyes, and he just looks like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And he's got yellow teeth. I think at this point, Tobey Maguire hadn't been in anything for ages.
No, he hadn't worked a lot, or he chose it. Sorry, that makes it sound like nobody was hiring him. He chose not to work a lot. And the fact that he's a producer on this, they definitely went to DiCaprio first, because him and Toby were in a poorly named posse back in the 90s when they were chasing tail around Hollywood, which I'm not going to repeat. As was Lucas Haas, who plays George in this. So all the gang were. Tobey Maguire looks absolutely disgusting in this film. Like he subsists on a diet purely of toenails and cigarettes, like
crystal meth.
Yeah,
he hadn't been in anything for ages, and he pops up, and it was like. I remember seeing it in the cinema and being like, Tobey Maguire, and being dead excited to see him. And then he was like, oh, it's Tobey Maguire. Oh, God.
I enjoyed his movie pictures. I would watch both of those movies.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very good.
And you can't deny that he doesn't have an eye for talent as well when he takes...
I found this bit, it goes very like Safdie Brothers, doesn't it? It goes really dark.
It does, yeah.
And he takes them to this nightclub, because he's saying how Hollywood has lost its edge and it's not as fun as it used to be. Because are they in the 50s at this point? Or is it like the 40s or something?
No, it's still 30s.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the 30s still?
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, Hollywood's lost its edge. And so he takes them to this sort of multi-story underground, out in the desert somewhere, and it's just so. You thought the first party was bad. This is just completely. It's so gross.
So there's just a big hench dude, like in a cave, and he's like the act that Tobey Maguire's build up. You want to see something? Can I show you something? You're going to absolutely love this. You're going to absolutely love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And it's just this huge hench dude eating rats. It's just awful.
It shows everything, doesn't it?
It's
I feel like a man actually ate a rat. That's how graphic it is. It's like, he actually did this, didn't he? It's so disgusting.
Yeah, we're very much into the ultra-violent part of the movie now. And I couldn't stop laughing when Tobey Maguire was balling up the 20s of what he thinks is real money, but is actually prop money, because the useless guy from the studio is.
I love that guy.
He's brought 85 grand of prop money to this drug deal.
Didn't tell Manny, and Manny's like, "Why did you say?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought you knew." I just.
Where would I get 85 grand? And Tobey Maguire's balling up these 20s and throwing them at this rat-eating mountain. Right? And he's just going, "Eat another rat! Eat another one!" And it's at this point that the money gets wet and the jig is up, basically, and like they have to run for their lives, and there's gunfire. There's an alligator in there as well, which is mental.
It's so funny. And like Manny, like, what's that big medieval weapon called with just a spiky ball at the end of a stick? And he just like nails that guy, the like bodyguard guy.
Oh yeah,
and
he does. Yeah,
fucking hell. Just murders a guy.
Not the first impaling in this movie.
It isn't.
As well, like the guy who gets impaled with a trident on the set of the war movie.
He ran into it.
Yeah. I think that if you're at a point where, you know, some things that go on in this movie are not for you, the callous way that human life is viewed and how expendable it is will also put you off, I should imagine, at this point. And they get away from the rat-eating dude in a cave, and the problem's not gone away, obviously. They've got to flee town. So Manny goes back to Nellie and says, "We've got to go. We've got to pack your stuff. We've got to get out of here." And they go and they have sort of like a moment where they come together at, like, is there a little wedding or something like that they're at? Or there's some little, like, event somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because she just wants to dance, doesn't she?
Yeah, because she's not really taking into account the severity of the situation that they're currently in. And he believes her that they're going to flee to Mexico and they're going to be together and they're going to be a family and all this. But do you think she's ever on board with this plan?
No.
Well, she's just a total free spirit, isn't she? And she's uncontrollable and, you know, completely. I mean, it's the fact that, you know, he leaves her unattended, and it's like, well, she's clearly not going to stay there, mate. Like, you know,
yeah,
you've got to expect what happens to her, where she just disappears into the night, doesn't she? And it's just like, and then she's sort of gone forever.
It's haunting, that final
disappearing
shot of
literally into the night. It's brilliant. Yeah,
again, great shot, because it's just blackness, isn't it?
Yeah,
she's just down an alleyway and just completely disappears. Yeah,
because her personality that he is in love with is just like, it never existed. You know, what he saw, he fell for the movie star charm, because she is a star, as she says right from the start of the film. And that's what he's in love with, but that's not her. You know, she's messy, she's a drug addict, she's a gambling addict, and then she just poofs out of his life.
Yeah.
And she never cared about him. So, and the fact that he never saw that, despite all this, over 20 years of knowing her, or 10 years of knowing her, or whatever. Which I guess, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but me watching it, I always had that faith that she would come around and she would do right in the end. And I guess, you know, he was the same. That's what he always saw the best of her, even though there wasn't anything good about her to see, really. But there was always that faith that something would, you know, she would find the right path and all that sort of stuff. And Jack is obviously, he's at the end of his road as well, because he's completely fallen off in popularity. Everyone sort of laughs at him because he's not a very good actor in the talking pictures ones, and he sadly kills himself.
Yeah. I think that scene that he has with Gene Smart's gossip columnist, who they're all quite friendly with, is really good, where they sort of, you know, he sort of has to confront his own mortality and his own shelf life, and she tells him, you know, 100 years from now, somebody will put one of your films through a projector and you'll be alive again.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of us will all be forgotten. But he can't stand that idea that he will no longer be in the spotlight anymore. And then we get into, you know, the final bits are, you know, Manny is told to leave town, isn't he? After after his accomplice in the drug deal gone wrong, and Kyle, the poor roommate, are brutally shot to death.
Yeah, it's bad. isn't it?
Poor Kyle, he's just sat there having his dinner, man, doing his own business.
Oh, poor guy. And then, Manny gets let off, just completely let off.
Yeah, disappears.
He disappears as well. It's just really sad because this sort of ending wraps up really quickly, doesn't it? Because you find out Nellie's fate just from newspaper headlines, don't you? From Variety, just the stories in Variety.
Yeah.
And it's really depressing how it's just a tiny little story in the bottom corner of a page. It's not like main news. It's like everyone's forgotten about and no one really cares about it. It's just
discarded.
Just totally discarded. And I mean, it's not necessarily the same for Jack because he was a big star, and with him it was the realization that he thought everyone was being mean to him and it was like a character assassination and all that stuff, and it's like, no, you've just expired. That's just careers. That's just how
yeah.
And that's why he chose to sort of end it all, because his ego couldn't take being a nobody. And then and it fast forwards like 20 years after all this.
20 years, yeah. Manny finally gets the guts to come back to Hollywood. He's like
crisp guy,
reinvented himself.
Now balding.
Yeah, now balding. He's a father with a wife, and he runs a little like radio shack in New York, apparently, by the sounds of things. And he's like having a little tour around the old haunts, isn't he? He's outside the Kinescope gates, and then he goes to see Singing in the Rain, doesn't he? Which is, again, there's some great filmmaking going on here in terms of like what's on the surface. So Singing in the Rain mirrors a lot of what happened to the people that he was in this industry with. So it sort of destroys him on that level, but then at the same time he can't help but be swept up in the magic of it once more.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends on this big lovely montage of stuff. Basically just the big cornerstones of Hollywood movies, isn't it? Where it just flash forwards through huge movies over time, like Ben-Hur and Tron's in there.
Yeah.
And,
Jurassic Park.
Then Jurassic Park, of course. Jurassic Park's in there. Great shot to use from Jurassic Park, though. The projection of Gattaca on the Raptor. Lovely shot.
He loves James Cameron.
Terminator 2's Avatar's in there, isn't it? And I'm a sucker for shit like that. This is fucking great.
Yeah. Loads of people talk against that, like, oh, I was with it until he showed a clip from Avatar. It's like 2 frames of the film.
Yeah. And it's the biggest grossing movie of all time. That broke a lot of ground on a technical level. Again, ignoring the technical fucking achievements of that movie.
Yeah.
Because it was a bit like Dances with Wolves. So, fuck off.
So what do you guys think he's saying with that final sort of montage of all these cornerstones of cinema?
For me, I would say that these people, these characters that we've been following, they are specks, but they're important specks in the grander fabric of this huge thing that we love. I mean, here we are down the line here. I mean, I'm not talking about down the line from Chazelle, but down the line from those movies and that era. And here we are, 3 dudes talking movies right now. We're talking about the very thing that this movie, that this film Babylon is telling us about the love of and its love of. And yeah, I think it's like we're all part of this great big tapestry of movies, both on the screen, behind the screen, and in it all just wonderful, and it's worth savouring and worth cherishing.
Yeah.
Do you think that was tagged on? I mean, I'm sure he intended it right from the off, because the film was disrupted a lot by COVID, wasn't it? I think shoots were delayed because of COVID, and then obviously that affected its box office as well, because people would still not be going to the cinema and stuff like that. So, maybe it was an attempt to be like, look how fucking magical this is. This is the legacy of everyone loves it, and all these incredible advancements over time in movies. Look where we were and where we are now, and all the bits in between.
Yeah,
I really like that closing montage.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, with that score over the top of it, that just absolutely bangs all the way through.
Yeah, the score is incredible.
So good. I mean, for me as well is what he's sort of getting across as well is like, yeah, Hollywood it's a fetid cesspit of exploitation, but that destroys itself in order to reinvent itself. But out of all of that destruction comes these moments of magic that make us fall in love with film. So I think he's like, yeah, these people of the silent era, they sort of had to be destroyed in order for progress in order for it to move forward, the art form. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be talking about it now. We wouldn't still be making movies now. If like there was necessary for the art form, but these poor people who were caught in the maelstrom.
Absolutely love it. I think that's really good takes here as well on this one. It's a very hard question to ask now, but what are your favourite bits of Babylon? What's your favourite bits?
I mean, you couldn't pull out just one bit, could you? Really? I mean, for me, my favourite stretch of the film is the 25-minute stretch intercutting between Nellie, Manny, and Jack's days on set. The spectacle of that filmmaking, and it's propulsive, frenetic, with scale, ambition, and just so much technical craft. It's in that particular section that the movie is firing on all cylinders, and it's just a joy to behold. And that when they're like, Jack's just been sitting in his tent all day, just getting drunk and coming up with lines for movies that will come out in the future, which I thought was a really funny touch. And like, he's so drunk as they're fighting the light at the end of the day, and they're like shoving him up the hill, like just as the sun is dipping below the hills behind them, and then they get the perfect shot, and a butterfly lands on his shoulder, and it's just perfect, and it's just the capturing of the magic of cinema, essentially. So leading up to that crescendo is when the film is at its strongest. And I still quite enjoy the 2 hours that come after it.
I love it. Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, Si, what about you?
Yeah, I mean that bit's really good. Just that how it cuts between those three scenes is really, really good. My favourite bit is where they're filming the first Nellie's first talkie scene, and everyone's just getting really frustrated with it and all the interruptions and all that sort of stuff. PJ Byrne is the actor who plays the assistant director, and they're just getting to the point where it's like they're all at the end of the tether with it, and he just loses his shit, and he's like, if anyone interrupts this scene again, I will shit on you. I will shit in your mouth. So good. And then they finally get the shot, and everyone's like cheering and whooping and hollering, and then the camera guy's just died in the hot box because he's too hot in there, because the hum of his camera would be too much for the sound guy, so you leave him in a shed while he's filming. And just that scene as a whole to then climax with Max losing his shit, and then the death of the cameraman. Oh God, it's just,
this man's
I was laughing
dead.
so much with that line. I will shit in your mouth. So good.
What I love about that is he clearly just blurts out like, I will shit on you, and he's like, oh God, like that's a really weird thing to say, and then he just keeps escalating. Is anybody else gonna F this scene in the ass? So
He is brilliant. What's your one, Rob?
I'm going to say that just that whole scene, I just thought it was brilliant, because I thought that the editing, the camera moves, the writing, I just thought that whole scene, Robbie's performance as well, I just thought everyone's performance, I just thought that is it's just like the most consummate movie making, that scene. I thought it was just electrifying. And yeah, I think it was, there were so many bits that obviously I really enjoyed about the film, but that I just thought, like, I'm watching something really, really special here. So I'd say that. I mean, and that leads on to the wider question of, for your reconsideration, Babylon, a critical flop, a money-making flop, but what do we think? James, you'll go last as is per our custom. So, Si, Babylon, for your reconsideration.
No, it's terrible. No, it's there's only one word to describe this movie, and that is chaotic. I just absolutely love how propulsive and frantic everything is, and despite the excessive levels of debauchery that might turn some people off, there's just some really great stuff going on in this that hums along underneath all this sort of visual excess. Legacy, the magic of movies, the evolution of Hollywood, and the struggle to adapt and survive within that. And then there's that element of class and race in this booming industry that's ready to chew you and spit you out, and particularly those from the lower rung of the societal ladder, which is what we see from sort of main players in this film. I honestly think it's a fantastic film. It was one of my favourite films of that year. It was a weird one, the fact that it came out several months after America, because we'd had all the negativity about it, so it was a bit weird coming out over here. And Whether that meant I enjoyed it more, I don't know. I was going into it with low expectations, possibly, and it just blew those out of the water. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It didn't quite live up to the first time I watched it in the cinema, which was, as I say, one of my favourite cinematic experiences ever. But it's a fucking great movie. And I just really hope that over time it's one of these films that people realise how good it actually is and sort of forget about the chatter around it. You know, the fact that Paramount put in all the chips on this to win awards and all that sort of stuff, and then just actually take a step back and watch it for the film it is and the excellently made film it is, and that Chazelle should be freed from director jail as soon as possible.
Excellent. I think this film is... So first of all, right, I'm ashamed of myself for looking at this from an outside perspective, not knowing anything about it, just seeing the pictures and whatever, the poster, and going, I'm not going to bother. And I've got to. I'm not going to do that anymore. I shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I know that obviously, like, you shouldn't waste time on what you don't like, but I didn't know that I was going to really, really like this, and I should have given it a whirl and should have given it the time of day. I think the film is a complete victim of its own success in so many ways. It nails the aesthetic. It nails what it's trying to do. It completely convinces you that this was one hellaciously insane period to live in, especially if you were one of the players involved in this industry. It's uncompromising in every single way, but technically it is an absolute marvel from start to finish. I think the fact that it's so successful at painting this lurid picture pushed people away from it. Unrightly so, because I think people should have stuck around to really look at the obvious merits of its technical achievements and just to see what a high standard of filmmaking is going on here. But then I think it's also a victim of its own success in that it can't possibly sustain the frenetic pace, this juggernaut of pace, for its entirety of its mammoth runtime. So I must admit, by the time we get to the end, I don't think it goes out with a whimper, but I think it goes out softly, rather than, the 2.5 hours that have gone by already that were just booming from start to finish. I think after the Tobey Maguire stuff and the rat-eating mountain guy, I think it goes into sort of like a natural-ish Twilight years, almost, of its very own. Do I feel like at the end of this film that I'd watched a 3-hour film? No, I absolutely don't. This didn't sag or didn't, aside from the end where I thought, yeah, we could speed things up a little bit here at the end. Aside from that very minor quibble, this is a staggering achievement of filmmaking. It just really, really is. And I really hope more people get the chance to experience it and more people give it a second chance and recognise just how, it might not be to your taste. It's not to my taste. I was revolted for so much of this film. I was offended for an awful lot of it. I was appalled for nearly every second of it. But was I entertained and did I marvel in its creation? Yes, I flipping did. So yeah, definitely reconsider Babylon.
Amazing. I'm glad you liked it, Rob. But I'm also not surprised that you were disgusted by a lot of it.
I really, really was.
Yeah, I can't add too much to that. I'm also relieved that you enjoyed it, Rob, because I knew that Simon liked it because I know he'd seen it already. But yeah, it's quite a big one to go in for if you're not really familiar with what it's setting out. And I mean, it caught me off guard the first time I saw it, and yeah, it punches you in the face from the start, and you either like take it and roll with the punches, or you go, nope, this is not for me. I'm getting off this train. In spite of its flaws, Babylon is a maximalist, rip-roaring and crucially ambitious swing for the fences from an author who has been given the freest of free reins over his vision. For me personally, I'm just looking forward to watching the critics who slagged this film at release inevitably perform a reverse ferret over the course of the next decade. And it's already starting. Like, people who didn't like it to begin with are like, oh, maybe it's not so bad, and they'll become raves over the next 10 years. I just wanted it on record that I've been on the front lines with this movie from the get-go. I thought it was brilliant the first time I've seen it. Not a masterpiece in the way that some people overcompensate with this, but there are issues there which I think we've touched on and been really fair with. But still, I've seen bad movies. I watched Rollerball from 2002 the other day. Now, that's a bad movie. Yeah. And this is not one of those.
It's just impossible to be a 1-star film, isn't it? I think that's absolutely ludicrous to say
It's
that,
just ridiculous. I mean, whoever, honestly, take their hand in their quills and their berets because they're off the case. Their critic credentials are gone. 1 star. Give me a break, honestly. You give 2 stars just if it's competently made.
Well, this is it. This is what we're talking about. I love the idea that it's like principally, we're in this with the sheriff basically as people in on the ground floor of supporting Babylon.
Absolutely.
And what a team to be a part of. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, whose turn and pick is it next? Simon, I believe it's yours.
It's mine, and I've had a bit of an 11th hour switch. I've just decided to do something else at the random last minute. I mean, it's nowhere near Halloween, so this choice might be a bit sort of inappropriate season-wise, but I don't really care. We are going to go back to the 80s with a group of young monster enthusiasts who have to save their hometown from Count Dracula and his monster minions. So we are going to watch Fred Decker and Shane Black's The Monster Squad.
Good grief.
Yeah.
It's a first watch for me.
I don't know if that's too niche, but...
No, not at all. I think that's got quite a cult following now, that film.
Yeah, so yeah, The Monster Squad.
It's like 85 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a good... I mean, I think after a 3-hour epic, we should...
It's a breath of fresh air.
Something quick and dirty,
A nice, fun... PG-13 as well. You'll get no jizzing cocks in this.
Goodness. And a relief was had by all. Absolutely brilliant, guys. Thanks so much for that. Thanks again, James, for the pick. Babylon was superb. Look forward to discussing the Monster Squad next time. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Tune in on the Twitters for a natter. That's not even a thing. Tune in on the Twitters for a natter and hit us up on your subscription service of choice with... 5 stars would be lovely if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Say goodbye, boys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I'm just off to now go and find a way to lie to my children. The reason for that is that they're big fans of the Australian TV series about mermaids called H2O Just Add Water. And they said to me that, those the teenage girls in it, they'll all be grown up by now. Are they still acting? And I said, yes, they are. I'll let you know if I ever see them in anything. Well, the lead was played by Phoebe Tonkin, who played Cleo. And Cleo, in this lovely movie, goodness gracious, Phoebe played Jane Thornton, who was the woman who weed on a piggy man at the start and then promptly died. No, kids. I've not seen...
She didn't die, she just OD'd.
Oh, goody. No, kids, I've not seen Phoebe Tonkin in anything. Goodness gracious.
Imagine your surprise. I wondered where that's...
I know, yeah.
I hope she hasn't discovered IMDb yet, because she'll be digging out. Daddy, can we watch the Babylon?
No, they're still after watching The Thing after I raved about it.